Hello and welcome back. Today's guest is Maggy Wang. She's a podcast host herself, and she's had lots of episodes with dating, love, and relationship experts. And I shared an article on Instagram last week, which was titled, "Why Women Are Leaving Men Behind." And it was from the Financial Times, but I had a lot of questions and a lot of things that I wanted to discuss and unpack with this one. I sent it to Maggy and she said, yes, let's do it. So we run through some things today. We talk dating apps, cheating, gender imbalances, love, attachment styles, and all things relationship based. She turned the tables on me a little bit and turned into the interviewer and put me on the spot with some pretty tough questions. But yeah, overall, incredible guest. The conversation went on for ages and I've trimmed it a little bit to make it a nice, concise podcast episode for you here. I hope you all enjoy it and take as much from it as I did. And if I could just ask one favor, please, if you wouldn't mind dropping a like, a subscribe, or a follow, depending on which platform you're on, it would mean the world to me. Thank you so much and enjoy the episode. So the modern dating scene gets quite a lot of bad press.
Yeah.
And people seem to think that it's a lot worse and a lot harder to find meaningful relationships in 2024. What's your take?
Not wrong. If you look on TikTok, the first thing you see is people talking about situationships. You know what situationship is, right?
Sure.
I'm not sure if you're in one.
Explain it for the listeners anyway.
I guess situationship is that limbo in between dating, not unofficially dating, and officially being boyfriend, girlfriend. That limbo in between. It's a situation where you're unsure whether or not we're official. And a lot of people, you'd be surprised, because I get DMs all the time, where some people can be in a situationship for like 4 years. I'm like, how do you do that? Like, why? So, yeah. So dating in today's day and age is pretty complicated. Yeah.
What causes people to get stuck in situationships?
I think really, I feel, based on my personal experience and the stories that I hear, really is because of
Men.
Men, yes, that is for sure. But I think fear of commitment and also maybe past traumas. Maybe you have been cheated on before in your previous relationship and that changed you forever. Things like that changes people, right? Or like if you're always looking for something that is perfect. I remember there's this one time I was in this relationship before. This was when I was really, really young. And I think I was someone that was always chasing for that perfection. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. And then there's always something that's not enough. There's always something that's not enough. And I'm always seeking. And I remember there was someone that told me, you'll never be able to find Mr. Right. And even if you do, your Mr. Right will never be perfect. And if you're going to always chase for that perfection, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure because that doesn't exist. You kind of have to live with the imperfection of it all. I think that's life. No, none of us are perfect, right? So I feel like that is one of the reasons a lot of people may be just chasing, oh, there's always someone better out there. Sure, there is someone better out there, but are you really that great to be like that perfect person to think that your partner is so imperfect for you? You know what I mean? So yeah, that's what I feel.
To play sort of devil's advocate or to put in a thinking point on that one.
Yeah.
I know, because I know that feeling of looking for perfection that you were talking about. But then there's the devil on the other shoulder, which says, what if you're settling?
Well, that is true. But I guess you should have some sort of baseline as to what you're settling for. And I'm sure you've been in relationships before, right? Obviously, if you are with someone who's emotionally abusive, who is never present for you, no, don't settle for those. But if you're in a really relatively healthy relationship, or like there's really nothing much going wrong, but you just feel like nothing's right, I think the question to ask is, are you also putting in the effort, or are you just sitting there thinking things would work out? You know what I mean? A lot of people just want things to work out, but they don't realize that they are not putting in the work themselves. So obviously, I'm not talking about like toxicity in relationships, like never settle for those, never ever. If a man or woman mistreats you, you feel disrespected, gaslighted, manipulated, like get out of there, right? But I'm talking about I mean, it is hard to know whether or not you're settling. I guess you'll never know. I don't know. I'll never know. I am not married yet. So I don't know. It's hard. It's a hard question. That's why we're still talking about it. That's why we're having a session today.
It is so hard. And taking relationship advice in general is so difficult because no two relationships are the same.
No.
There are always so many nuances in between them. So putting out platitudes on TikTok of saying, always do this if your man does this, or never do that. It's so hard to take that and have it to have a valuable practical application in your own relationship.
Exactly. I mean, there's no one size fits all when it comes to relationship advice. I'm sure you know, like, what is applicable to this set of couple may not be applicable to the other set of couple because we're also different in so many ways and facets. So I guess every time you take a relationship advice, even if it's listening to this podcast or any other podcast or books or articles you read out there, I feel like take it with a pinch of salt and really see if it's applicable to your situation instead of just kind of like trying to emulate it. Exactly. There's no copy and paste. I think it's so easy for people to say, but to do it is a whole different story.
100%.
Yeah.
Do you think there are situations where situationships are actually the best course of action?
Have you been in a situationship that is the best course of action? I haven't.
No. Only example I can think of that is I move around the world quite a lot. So I'll go from country to country and I spend 6 months to a year in them because my work has involved moving a lot and just generally have the travel bug. So for me, as someone who doesn't want serial one-night stands and wants the comfort of a relationship, but also doesn't want to take someone down the garden path of, okay, now we're going to make this work no matter where I am in the world. I felt like there have been situations where it has been.
That is very fair. But I don't know. I feel like men and women, we function quite differently. I am not sure if I can be in a serial situationship. Like I would rather be by myself than to be in multiple, not multiple at the same time, but like situationships after situationship. But in your case, like you're someone who do travel the world or like is never in one place for a very long time. I guess it works out for you, Like each to its own, right? I guess it's really down to personality. Like for me, I feel like it's also investment in situationships, like it or not, when emotions and feelings are involved, you can get hurt. And I'd rather not get hurt and not get involved in the first place. I feel. That's just me.
I fully agree. I'm not actually advocating for situationships at all.
That's a very fair point though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that for women in particular, they are the healthiest things. And I do think that there is a difference, which might get me in a bit of trouble, between what men and women generally want out of relationships.
Yeah. I guess it really depends at what phase of your life, to be very honest. If you're like in your early 20s, I think for most people, being in situationships would be okay. But like when you're like 35 and looking to settle down, like situationship probably wouldn't be in your mind because you probably are looking for someone to settle down with, and situationship will, if anything, will only delay that from happening, right? So I guess it really depends at what phase of your life you're in, where whatever you just said, the situationship could very well be a very viable option. And I know there are people out there who are traveling the world, like that works for them, like just having someone to keep them company and have that emotional attachment. And then I also think that people who can do multiple situationship or like situationships after situationships are people who can detach very easily or compartmentalize their emotions. Like they can just shut off and move on to the next. I cannot. I think I'll get hurt if I do so. Just not my thing.
There is something that I read, which was that the amount of sexual partners or relationships that a man has had was a direct indicator to how likely they were to be in a successful long-term relationship. What the conclusion was that the more sexual partners that a man had, the less likely he was able to be in a committed long-term relationship.
Okay, I thought you were gonna say like the more partner he has, the more successful it's gonna be. Because I was gonna question you, how does that work? But okay, that makes sense. I don't know what's your take on that though. As a man, from a man's perspective, I'm curious.
The reason I brought that one up is because of what you just said about the detachment, where anecdotally, personally, I have had to go through quite a lot of breakups, and whether you'd actually call them breakups when they've only been 3 or 6 month things before I moved to another country. But it's never easy, but then you have to find a way to sort of detach and move on, right? And I went through a breakup earlier this year.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. And this one was a real one.
Oh no, so that hurts even
this
more.
one we've been together a couple of years.
Oh.
And I went through that. The first sort of 3 months that were really hard. And then, recently she's just found someone else, and genuinely I'm happy for her, because one of the things that I was scared of was that I might find someone else first, and then, because I'm the one that's left, and I genuinely want her to be happy. And as you say, women typically are looking for something that's not a situationship, right?
Generally, yeah.
Generally. Mm-hmm. And I have grown thicker skin or learnt to detach from it, right? So I would rather have gone through the pain, because there is pain seeing your partner post someone else, right? Your ex-partner post someone else. Even if you feel like you're moving on, that is just a nail in the coffin that it drives it home.
I feel like the first one after the breakup will always be the most painful, no matter how far you've moved on. I feel like you'll always kind of sting a little. Yeah, I do think.
Yeah.
But how are you dealing with it though? Like, did it really not affect you at all?
No, it did. It did. And I remember seeing it, and there's a war in your head of the two voices, right? The one voice is like, this is literally what I wanted to happen. I asked for this, that she would find someone else first. Then the other chimp brain in my head was like, still mine,
she's
still
mine.
Yeah.
Oh man, that hurt.
Yeah. So you go through that, but the cognizant side of the brain has won. The chimp brain hasn't won on that point, but it doesn't stop it from hurting. But anyway, I went down a bit of a sidetrack there, because we were talking about men and the indication of them being in long-term relationships correlating to their amount of sexual partners. And anecdotally, I do think that having gone through quite a few situationships and moved on, that I have kind of detached, and I then find it harder to connect
after.
Yes.
Oh no. No, I mean, that's true. It's almost like you're conditioning yourself to this detaching. So obviously, after multiple times of having to just detach, it becomes your norm. Mm-hmm. And then to really be able to fully connect again no longer becomes your norm anymore. And then it's something you have to relearn and really put in. That's why I say put in the work. At the end of the day, I feel like it's really about whether or not your other half or the person that you're seeing, dating, or whatever it is they call it these days, is willing to put in the work. Because I feel like every set of relationship that we've had in our lives always teaches us something new. And there's always a little bit of trauma in each relationship, right? Whether or not it's the extent of it, I can't speak on behalf of everyone. Sometimes it could be a good one, but the breakup itself caused you so much trauma, so much pain, that the pain of loss just made you feel so scared to jump into the next one again, if ever. Even if you could be meeting the best guy in the world, that trauma could hold you back from jumping into that fresh new relationship. Could very well be the best relationship you'll ever have. So yeah, I got sidetracked a little bit also. But detaching. But I hope you'll be able to learn to connect again, and if with the right one someday. I know it's hard.
As you were saying, it's just about putting in the work.
Put in the work. But I feel like you're having this podcast, having conversation with so many people, and I'm a podcaster myself, and I feel like sometimes I learn so much just from chatting with other people. So I think that's good.
It was a big part of what I wanted to do with this. Is I called it Growth Game, not because I wanted it to be some cheesy self-development thing, but for me, it was conquering my fear of social media and posting things on there, which I never did until this year.
Really?
It was talking to people that I felt were going to help me grow. And then obviously in turn, it would do that. So it has opened up doors. Like you and I probably never would have spoken or met if it wasn't for this, right?
But thanks for reaching out, and shout out to Moogs for connecting us as well. I was like, what? Okay, you know what? It's a perfect timing because my podcast is coming back. I kind of like want to oil up the engine again to be in front of camera again. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, very welcome. Thank you for coming. So you mentioned putting in the work.
Yes.
What does the work look like?
For me, I go to therapy, and I used to go to couples therapy with my former partner, my previous partner. And those are, for me, in my opinion, what work really looks like. Because sometimes, you don't know what you don't know. So I highly recommend couples therapy. Have you tried?
Not couples.
Oh, really? Yeah.
No.
But personal therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been going to therapy like personally for about 5 years now. And it is one of the best investment I've ever had for myself, because I feel like it has really taught me so many things that I wouldn't have otherwise been able to know or learn if not for my therapist. So I really owe her my life. I think she's also taught me so much about the kind of person I want to be in a relationship, not just a romantic partner with a romantic partner, but also with the people around me. Because I'm a bit of a people pleaser, and I have a bit of a anxious attachment, a bit of a quite insecure attachment. So like I had to really work through it on my own with my therapist, so that I could be a better person, not perfect, but better person for myself and the people around me. So that's still a work in progress, to be very honest.
You're an anxious attachment style.
I used to be very much, hopefully now more secure. I think I'm leaning towards more secure, but yes, my original attachment style is anxious. What about yours?
Avoidant.
Oh, wait, can you describe that again? What is an avoidant attachment style? I forgot.
Avoidant attachment style is
you shut down. Oh,
whenever there's conflicts, then I try and leave it and run away, as I've been told by
your previous partners.
Yeah. So how many attachment styles are there? Do you know?
Okay, I think that's secure, avoidant, anxious, and was it disorganized? I don't know. That's 4, I think. That's 4. But the popular one is secure, anxious, and avoidant. The main ones that I remember.
I spoke to a chap earlier this week who's really good. I haven't released that episode yet, but by the time anyone hears this, then the episode with Jonathan Asley will be out. And he talks about the two attachment styles, avoidant and anxious, and how they often attract each other, which is a bit of a disaster.
It is quite a disaster, speaking from experience. Multiple experiences.
Because if you're someone who's got an anxious attachment style, or when something's gone wrong, you need to be held, you need to be comforted and convinced it's going to be okay. And you're with someone who's avoidant, who just wants to
you don't get that.
Go and get some space. It can exacerbate things and turn the tiniest problems into huge situations.
Oh, yes. I think I can 100% agree on that. But you see, that's the tricky part, right? Like, you really wouldn't know someone until you have spent enough time with them. So you can't really go, so what's your attachment style on your like 3rd date? And you go, oh, I'm secure, but actually you're avoidant. Like you never know until you have experienced time and things with this other person. So yeah, it's hard. And sometimes a little bit of mix of everything also. So I think I'm I used to be a bit of a anxious plus avoidant, like a bit of secure, like very tiny bit. Everything else is like way more. But yeah.
Does it take 2 to tango with a secure attachment style? Or do you think you could be a secure attachment style and be in a relationship with someone with avoidant, for example?
I think it's possible with awareness and being aware that let's say I'm the secure one and my partner is not. It will take a lot more work on both ends. Me, a lot more patience, and a lot more understanding, because it can get draining and tiring. And I could feel like one day I can't do this anymore. And on the other hand, my partner will have to really put in the work to kind of like work on that attachment issue that he has. So I have definitely been together with people who were avoidant, where they would just shut down. Most men are avoidant, I feel. Is it not true? I feel like most men are avoidant, and generally women are more anxious, because like we want to talk about, say if I get into a fight right now, I want to talk about it right now. Like, can we just deal with it now? But I guess you're not that kind of person.
I think I do like to have the conversation and sort it out. One thing I've had to learn through managing my own emotions is that I'm not good at talking about it straight away. And that's not due to the attachment style. It's more because if I'm in the heat of the moment, I argue to win and I don't hear the other person. So I've learned to say, look, give me half an hour and let's come back to it.
Yeah.
Because I typically in the moment, I'll be thinking, you're so wrong. Like, how dare you do that?
Yeah.
I take half an hour, I run through the scenario another 20 times in my head. I'm like, okay, now I'm actually starting to see it from her point of view. So I find that giving me half an hour is much more productive in terms of coming to a decent resolution.
Yeah. I think that's so good that you give like a time. I feel like a lot of people maybe don't do that. They'd be like, I don't want to fucking talk to you right now. Get the fuck off, or like, get out. And that could really trigger the person who has anxious attachment style. But I feel like coming from someone who has anxious attachment style, taking time to process is also very helpful. I feel like what you said, like if I take 30 minutes versus really talking about it right now in that very instant when I'm also heated up, it never really turns out the best also. So through my experience in my past relationships and my work in therapy, I've also learned that when I do take that 30 minutes off, I'm usually much less anxious by the end of the 30th minute. And then I can actually speak a lot more calmly and not so anxious and come to a middle ground or a conclusion with my partner. But it, again, takes work on both sides, right? So yeah, I can really relate to that very much.
I'm a big advocate for taking half an hour, and I find I'm also a lot more productive in solving arguments via message than I am in person. And that's not me saying that you should leave your girlfriend and then text her something, when you're gone. But the reason I'm better at that is because I can reread what I've written and see how it's come across.
Yeah.
And I can be quite hot-headed. Even when I say things that are meant in a way that's supposed to resolve the problem, it can still
sound.
Yeah, it can still give people the wrong impression when it comes across. So whenever I'm having, a text debate, I will read and tweak everything and try and take 20% off every sentence once I've written it.
I have a question. This is on behalf of the ladies out there. I don't know. I've been seeing like TikToks. I mean, TikTok's been dominating our world, right? I've been seeing TikToks that says men hate essays. You know how when you fight, like you said, when you text, it's like a whole paragraphs after paragraphs. You got to scroll and scroll. Like apparently men don't fully read through it. They just glance through and say, okay, yeah, I don't want to deal with it. Is that true?
I may be an outlier because I could just speak from personal experience, but I'm typically the one that would put an essay just to make sure that I cover it from every point of view. You know what I mean? And be like, look, I'm saying this, but I'm not saying this because, and put the sublines on it as well. So typically, no, I'm better at those, and I prefer voice noting long messages unless it's an argument. And then, as I say, or there's any chance of anything being misconstrued, then I'll put it in a message so I can make sure I'm putting in something that's deflammatory.
Yeah. Can I ask you something very personal? You don't have to answer if you don't want to. I feel like we're just switching roles now. Can't help it. Like, without going into details, like what didn't work in your previous relationship, or was it really because you just wasn't going to be around that you ended it, that you learned from it?
That's a question that we would need a few podcasts.
Oh my God.
And maybe a couple of other therapists involved to try and get to the bottom of. And that's one of the reasons why I want to talk about these relationships. Like when I spoke to Jonathan earlier this week, so much of what he said, I could see myself in, and he was helping me understand it. I went to therapy after my second long-term relationship fell apart. And I only did a handful of sessions there. I didn't stick at it long term, but I felt like I'd said all I needed to say and heard all I needed to hear at that point. But I'm still learning so much about myself in every relationship that I have. And I don't mean exclusive, just a girlfriend, but every person that I meet, I'm learning about myself at that point. There are a lot of labels that can be used to describe what went wrong. Most of them will be my fault. And I'm not denying that. And it's not that we haven't had good relationships. Like my last partner that I spoke about, still on really good terms, and there's no animosity there at all. But she does openly take the piss out of me for having commitment issues like all the time.
Commitment issues, exactly what I said earlier.
Yeah. And I don't know what the reasons are for it. And saying commitment issues has just got such a negative connotation to it these days because it's used to describe so many men that use it as an excuse to just be fuckboys, right? I am adamant that I don't fit into that camp, but I know a lot of people won't believe me.
So what's your camp?
I feel guilt a lot of the time that I will be honest at the start of something and say, look, I'm not good at relationships. I'm not looking for a relationship. I move around a lot. let's leave it, just keep it casual. But as you say, you can say that with the best intentions, but you pair bond. Like it's natural. It's a chemical thing in your brain that causes you to care more about the other person, to be more affectionate with them. And yeah, the last 2 or 3 relationships have always started with me saying, look, I'm not fixed. I've got a lot of issues.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for a relationship. And then, even while I'm still adamant in that, I develop feelings and I build up this guilt that, okay, now we're getting deeper. Now we're getting past the point where it's acceptable to just be saying there's nothing here, right? It's dragging people into a deep situationship. So I feel like I've got to choose between committing forever or cutting it off at that point. And typically it builds up until I run away, as they've put.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that you feel that way, honestly. I'm not a relationship expert, so I don't know what to say to that apart from when the right one comes someday, then you will want to put in the work to make it happen differently, I guess, right? Until then, enjoy traveling the world. I feel like that's also a big part of your life.
100%.
Yeah.
I hope that you're right, because there's 2 schools of thought, which we've discussed already. One is that when I find the right person, that my mindset will change. The other is I've managed to disconnect so much.
So currently we're here, the disconnecting. So until you're tired of having to disconnect again and again and again, then maybe you will switch and shift over to the other side. Because I feel like until you're ready, you will not be ready.
I hope so. Yeah. I feel like that puts a lot of pressure on the women that I start dating.
Because they will never know, right?
They'll never know. And
like even if like everything feels right, you could very well just pack up and go at the end of the day.
And I have done. Say my last partner, literally on paper, perfect.
Oh,
she was so good. And just...
You know what? I think it's good that you're honest about it. I feel like that is good. You're not really avoiding it this time. You're kind of like facing it head on. But, oh man, that's tough. I feel like maybe I need to get you on my podcast to talk about this one. Okay.
I think I had this idea, and it's not something I'm actually going to go through with, but I thought it could be quite interesting to sort of publicize my therapy, to talk to like a relationship therapist and just document it. Because I don't know, I haven't actually done any research to see if there's stuff like that out there, but it could be interesting to unpack.
So there is someone, do you know who's Esther Perel?
I've heard the name, but I can't put a face to it.
So she is, was it psychologist? Her podcast basically revolves around sharing therapy sessions, but of course keeping their names and voices anonymous. I don't know if they change their voices, but their names are anonymous. But she brings couples onto her show and basically give them therapy. And sometimes when I listen to it, I can relate to a lot of it. You can go check it out. Maybe get some inspiration for that, for your own one. I think that would be quite nice.
Good idea.
Estelle Perel. She's cool. I learned so much from her.
Yeah. Hopefully I can learn from it too, but for the record, I'm not actually planning on putting my therapy out there, I think.
Not yet. Maybe one day.
I like the idea of doing it when I know what's going to come out, but when I don't know what my own issues are just yet, perhaps I better keep that private until I figure that out.
That's the best part about therapy. You really would never know what's going to come out of each session. So,
So let's not go too much deeper into my own
let's come back.
Issues. Let's talk about dating as a whole. So I shared a Financial Times piece with you, and the title was "Why Are Women Leaving Men Behind?" And to put some context on it for anyone who hasn't seen the article, women typically are hypergamous, meaning that they date across and upwards in terms of education, income, and social status. Men are not. Men are quite happy taking a woman who doesn't earn as much as them, is less educated than them, and so on. And again, I'm talking generally here. Women are now becoming better educated and better qualified than men on the whole, with 66% of students in American universities being female. So that's double the amount of males there, which is causing a dating epidemic.
Unfortunately.
What are your thoughts on that headline, "Women are leaving men behind"?
I feel like it's such a shitty headline. I don't think women are leaving men behind, but we are just kind of like choosing better men instead. How are we leaving men behind? Let me just digest on that.
Or are men just not keeping up?
Yeah, I guess we've been bettering ourselves over the years and years, women in society in general just has a different place, say 50 years ago. And if anything that has happened in the last 50 years or 100 years, we've been working really hard to find ourselves to be equal with men. And having said that, some women are way more than equal. They're way more than capable compared to a lot of men out there. So yeah, men gotta keep up a lot more. You guys are a little bit complacent now. You guys are very comfortable in your space, which is fine. But I also think that a lot of men, because so many more women are a lot more capable and are, say, higher earners than most men of their age or maybe their social status, surprisingly, I hear a lot of husbands are happy to be house husbands also. So I feel like the dynamic has kind of changed. More women are so okay to take charge while the husbands take a step back. While some women are struggling to find men of the equal, what's the word? Who are equal to them. Personally, I feel like it really depends on your personality. Are you someone who's very alpha? Because if you're someone very alpha and you be with a man who's also equally alpha, it could be disastrous. But if an alpha woman be with a man who's a bit more laid back and chill and just like, okay, you take charge, no problem, baby. I'll just be at home while I let you make the decisions. I think that could be a very good dynamic. So I feel like that headline is a little bit too generic, I would say, because at the end of the day, what we want is love. What we want is security, and at least I am speaking for myself, and a good person. So for me, if am I okay dating someone who doesn't earn as much as I do? The answer is, I would say at the moment, yeah. But of course, the gap can't be too far out. A little bit is okay, but not too far out.
An interesting point on what you said about that shift in dynamics, where there are more women that are the earners and more men that are becoming house husbands, is that's a leading indicator for domestic violence.
How so?
In that, in looking at cases of domestic violence, when it was a woman that was the breadwinner and the man was the house husband, I can't remember the exact multiple, but it was at least 3 times more likely to have issues of domestic violence.
I've not heard of this before. This is new to me.
So again, this is kind of on men as well in this situation. Men generally have to be the heroes of their own story.
Generally, yes.
Generally. And if you ask most men, they wouldn't say that they were all right having, that kind of relationship. They typically felt like that would emasculate them.
Emasculated, yeah.
And when they feel like they are being emasculated and losing power in the relationship, they take it back in whichever areas that they can. And they can't out-earn them. They can't out-think or out-argue them, but they can out-muscle them. And that's resulting in quite a lot of domestic violence in those relationships. Now, as a rule, as you say, if you find a man who, and again, the word beta has got quite a lot of negative connotations, but if you find a man who's happy taking a backseat role and you have a woman who's better suited to the alpha role and you're happy together, then amazing. But I think a lot of people that end up in that situation don't get into it with that being the intent.
Yeah.
And
sure.
Men are too insecure to deal with that power dynamic.
Yeah. But I also feel like we are in that shift at the moment because things were obviously very different with our parents' generation. But the current generation is the shift that's happening. But of course, I feel like it can be emasculating for most men. I agree, because I do also want a man who can take care of me and I can just take the back seat. But oftentimes, it's almost like I feel like I'm kind of forced to be the hero of my own story. Like, I grew up in a broken family personally. And my dad was someone I thought we could rely on, but unfortunately not. So that had kind of shifted the way I look at relationships also. Like, my mom would kind of like tell me, hey, just find a man who can take care of you. But instead, I've been telling her, Mom, like, why? Why can't I take care of myself also? And just based on stories and news that you see, a lot of women kind of lose, as much as we think that more women are out earning men, but the truth is, I think men are still higher earners than women in general, right? We are catching up for sure, but in general, is still not there yet. But what I'm trying to say is also a lot of women out there also, we are kind of conditioned, at least in the Asian household. I come from an Asian family background where we are always told to find someone who earns a lot of money and who can take care of us. And that's the formula to live a happy life. But I feel like in this generation that is slowly changing for sure. I always tell my mom, I would love to find a rich man, but I also want to be the rich man myself. So going back to your initial question, are more women leaving men behind? I don't know. I just feel like I'm just doing my own thing. I'm not leaving men behind. If he can catch up with me too, I'll be happy to be on it, be on board together. So I don't know. I don't fully agree with that headline, but I do know there's truths to it. Some facts rings true, but at the same time, at the end of the day, I feel like it's a lot more than just the social status. At the end of the day, to have a happy long-term relationship, it takes more than just money, social status. It takes a lot of like all the little things that it's so hard to pinpoint. It's such a nuanced thing, if I can say so.
100%. I just want to correct myself on the statistic that I quoted a minute ago. So I checked it.
Yeah.
So I was doing. The study was by Springer, and they showed that women who earn more than their male partners, which is called female breadwinning, they're 33% more likely to experience domestic violence. So it's not 3 times, it's 33% more likely. Okay. They're also 20% more likely to experience emotional abuse.
Well, you know what? I think I do know someone who has told me before that she was not earning as much as... I think it was a DM that I got a while ago, because I do get DMs all the time. This girl was telling me that her boyfriend she noticed that her boyfriend started to, hate to use the word abuse, like emotionally abuse her the moment where she got her first promotion and then her second promotion, but he was still in the same position that he was at the start of their relationship. So now she's almost like in a higher position, and she felt like he needed to take back power by saying mean things to her and doing mean things to her. And then exactly what you said, it does happen, and it's unfortunate, and I wish more men can have more awareness to not do that. But I wonder why they do that though. Like why?
Interestingly, it's something that I've been thinking about in another context, but I think it applies here, is I think men are actually a lot more insecure than they pretend to be. So being a man's man comes with putting on a bravado and being confident.
It's just a facade.
It's a facade. And one of the main reasons that I think so many men feel the need to sleep with multiple women, and historically myself included, is for that external validation.
What validation do you get? Like, how do you feel after it happens?
Okay, so this is probably going to get me in some hot water as well.
From the women that you've been involved with, but it's okay, it's a safe space.
So I remember when I was 16, and that was when my peers were just starting to lose their virginity and have sex, and it was obviously a rite of passage, and the people who got there first had bragging rights over anyone who hadn't been there yet. And then it was all important about how many women men could sleep with. And I remember, men typically would inflate the amount of women that they've slept with. There was some statistic that comes from some film which isn't actually correct, but they call it the rule of 3, which is if you ask a man how many women he slept with, you have to divide it by 3 to get the real answer. If you ask a woman how many men she slept with, you have to times it by 3 to get the real answer. So ignoring the slight on women in that one there, it's men feel like sleeping with women makes them more of a man. It makes them seem higher in terms of social status. It makes them seem higher in terms of desirability. And for men that are insecure and aren't sure of their own value, having another woman willing to sleep with them, because women are typically the gatekeepers, gives them a sense of validation.
Fair. I'm very honest with my body count, but I personally find men, no offense, men with a very high body count, a major red flag. I'm sorry. Personally, like I'm talking about, I think I watched too much Love Island. I saw there was this one participant, a bombshell that walked. You know Love Island? Do you watch Love Island?
I don't watch it, but I know
show.
of it. Yeah.
And he revealed his body count and he was like 200. And this guy's only like 25. I'm like, how many people you sleep with in a day to have 200 body count? And yeah, you're right. It is something that they flaunt and they're proud of. And if a woman says she slept with 200 men, she should be called a slut. So it is something that I think I still feel like I struggle with sometimes. But coming back to the topic, sorry, one sec. What were we talking about? Oh my God, I lost track.
We were talking about the insecurity of men.
Yeah. I do think I'm in no position to say whether or not it is a way for them to mask their insecurity. It could just really be a favorite pastime to just, when you're not in a relationship, that's what you do. And then that's very fair to sleep around. But if you sleep around while you're in a relationship, then that's a different story. So keep your body counts to yourself. Like it's I feel like it's really not an indication. I've been with someone who had very high body count and turns out to be a very, very decent guy. And it's just that those body count happened while he was very single and just chose to not be in a relationship, and that's okay. Yeah. Does it matter for you if your partner has a very high body count? Maybe I ask it back to you, throw it back to you.
Yes.
So you're not okay if she has a high body count.
So it's not a black or white. It's not binary.
Yeah.
But it's a scale, right? And the higher the scale goes, the more you're a bit like, whoa, 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 whoa.
So kind of like what I said. It is a red flag.
It is. And I think it's a red flag both ways. So I don't think mine is particularly low. And I'm not pretending it's not a red flag, because as we were talking about with disconnecting and disassociating, I do think that that's true. And anecdotally, I feel like the older I've got and the higher that my body count has got, then the more I do kind of find it harder to connect in relationships. Yeah. So obviously when I'm looking for a partner, I'll be honest about my own side of it. But then even though I've got that, which you call a red flag, and I'm not disagreeing with it, it's obviously something I would also consider to be, I'm going to call it an amber flag. And the reason I'm going to call it an amber flag is because it's not
flag?
An amber.
Oh, amber. Okay.
Yeah. So red to me would imply it's a stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Amber.
Done.
Okay. I got it.
Amber is like, slow down, take note of what else is going on in this situation before you decide whether to go through this traffic light.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely something that I would ask questions about.
Would you reveal your body count in the first 3 dates?
Yes, if ever I'm asked.
You would be open about it. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm not going to be open about it on the podcast.
Obviously, no. We won't do that. It's too personal. But yeah, I feel like it is also a very important question. Obviously, we're talking about relationship, talking about getting into relationships. I feel like when it comes to dating, I think it's so important to ask all the important, difficult questions at the start. Not when you're about to be together or when you are together. That's just my personal point of view and what I would do if I were to be with someone. I want to know everything before I make any decision. Yeah, but that's not what a lot of people do. They just have fun. Okay, just go for movies. Don't really have deep conversations. Just enjoy each other's company, which is why situationship is such a thing in today's day and age, 2024. So
it's one of the things that Jonathan said as well. So he obviously is a man and a relationship coach and expert.
I need to meet Jonathan. I need to meet Jonathan.
You do. I'll send you a link to some of his work. But one of the things that he said as well, he was giving advice for women to avoid getting involved with men that weren't serious and that were going to waste their time. Can
you give me some tips, please?
One of them was exactly what you just said, and it was grill him on the first date.
Oh, yeah. Okay, maybe 3 dates. The first date might scare him away.
So one of the things that he was saying is on the first date is you don't have to say, do you want a relationship with me? But it's a case of what are you looking for right now? And if he's like, oh, I just kind of want to go with the flow and see where it goes.
Is that a red flag? So what is a good answer though? Like what?
So the good is obviously subjective on your own ambitions, right? But if you are serious and you want to settle down and find someone, then a good answer is the guy is looking to do the same. If he says that out of the starting blocks, then you know that you're both on the same page and you're working towards the same goal.
Yeah. Okay.
Obviously, if you're happy, just you're looking to have some fun, then you can both go down that route and have some fun. But his advice was directly aimed at women who are serious about wanting to find someone and settle down.
Yeah.
Ask the man, and if he doesn't reciprocate, then it's generally a no.
And does it scare you away if a woman grills you? Because some men can really take it, and they could still very well like pack their bags and go at the end of the day.
Jonathan's second point was men will say what they need to say in order to get laid, which again is a big generalization. I feel like there's been quite a few here, but I do think as a general rule then that has some credence as well. I don't think it would scare me off, but there is someone who may well listen to this because she's been a gem actually and listened to a few of the podcast episodes and share them. But again, won't name drop. And her and I met on a dating app. Mm-hmm. We arranged to do a first date. I can't remember how the situation sort of arose, but she let me know before even the first date that she was being very particular with her time and wanted to be serious. And it wasn't that it's...
Sorry, serious to... As in like she's looking for a serious relationship?
Yes.
Okay.
So she wasn't dating to have fun. She was dating and she said she wanted to be very deliberate with her time.
Yeah.
And because as I say, I'm not in a position where I think that I am a healthy fit for most women on the planet.
I'm appreciating this honesty. This awareness is very good.
And you'll probably know her. I'll tell your name after this, but she's a very successful, very well-known actress in KL.
Yeah.
And I said, look, I'm not. And there was no toxicity about it. It was like, okay, look, let's call this off. I wish you the best. You wish me the best. She listens to the podcast. I keep up with what she's doing. And
you called it off before the first date.
We've never met.
What?
We've never met.
What?
I know.
Oh my God. Wait, that's so good. I wish more men do that because you are... you know exactly what you want, which is, both of your goals are not aligned, and that saves so much trouble. Oh, wow, that's beautiful.
The thing is, I don't know what I want, but I know what I don't want, and I don't want the guilt of wasting someone's time that is looking for something serious. So if someone says to me that they're looking for something serious and involved, it's not that I don't want that, it's that I don't want to be in a position where I've got that expectation on me when I feel like I've got a track record of disappointing on that front.
Yeah. Fair. That's very, very fair. Yeah, I guess it's one way to look at it. Like what you just said, I just kind of like picked that up. I think a lot of us don't know what we want, but I guess we can also kind of look on the flip side. We often know what we don't want. So that's a good way to start also. I hope you guys are taking notes, those of you listening.
I'm also not recommending calling off first dates before they happen.
You know what? She might just be a great gal.
Yeah.
Would you ask her out again?
I would have gone through, and I still would, but just not. There's also an age thing, right? And I had a guest on here called Frankie Turner, and she spoke about perimenopause and how women often think that they have until their 40s or 50s before they have to worry about menopause. And it's not the case. Mm-hmm. It can set on in your early 30s, and your window for reproduction and your prime mating years, you are on the clock. And I recently shared something which showed that men are more on the clock than they think as well, but it's still not to the same degree that women are. Yeah. So I don't want to feel like I'm potentially wasting someone's time. And it was the same with my ex. She was very clear. She wanted a relationship. She wanted kids. She wanted all of that. And I felt guilt that I was getting in the way of that when, okay, I'm not saying I wouldn't want it longer term, but
not right now.
But right now we're not aligned in our goals and objectives, and so it was better to just call it there.
I mean, that is also one of the reasons why so many relationships don't work out. Like after, like a lot of us maybe start off our relationship in our early 20s, and like I said, as you move on to a different phase of your life, when one person perhaps wants to settle down, the other may not be ready, and it sucks, but it is what it is. It is the way life is. So unfortunately, it's painful, but rather break up than having to go through a divorce, right? With kids in a toll, that's tough. Yeah.
Exactly. If you're not honest about your intentions, you're guaranteed to get what you don't want.
Yeah. And I think from my point of view, I think as a woman, I think it's also good that we state what we want. I think the girl that you were talking about, like, great on her that she was so honest from the start, even before the first date. She's like, oh, you know what? I'm actually looking for something serious. Because had she not said that, and maybe you guys went on that date, you guys really clicked. And then it's going to be hard to detach after, because you're like, you know what? I really enjoy spending time with her. But then only after meeting her, you realize, oh, she actually doesn't want anything serious. Like, that sucks. So yeah, I guess if you guys want to avoid situationship, which is I feel something that is so common these days, is to just be honest from the start. And if you're stuck in a situationship, I feel like the real answer is you're not being honest with yourself.
If that's not what you want.
Yeah.
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 Agree. And you can date for fun. And I have done that where it's nice. You go meet a new person, they're a good conversation, you have a couple of drinks and you have a great night.
Yeah.
But what's your priority? Are you looking to have fun with strangers? And I'm not talking about sex. I'm talking about dating in general, just having fun. Or are you looking to find your life partner?
Yeah.
And depending on what your motives are, depend on how you should handle that situation. And interestingly and anecdotally from this person that I was talking about, we called her off before the first date.
Yeah.
Something in my brain holds more respect for her for that.
Yeah, way more. Like, I respect her for that also,
Yeah.
for being honest from the start. And if anything, I think men find that a lot more attractive, that a woman knows what she wants. This is based off my conversation with the men I've spoken to as well in my life, my friends and all that. And they're like, I love it when a woman knows what she wants. Oh, I just have a question. Do you like it when a woman makes the first move?
No.
Oh, why? That's a little bit contradicting because she is kind of like knowing what she wants. Okay, not really making a move first. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so
break it out for me.
She wasn't making the first move.
Yeah.
She was letting me know what she wanted and then saying, balls in your court, buddy. That's what I see that as. Typically, I like making the first move for two reasons.
Yeah.
One, I'm old-fashioned.
Okay.
And
old-fashioned.
Yeah, I think that it should mostly fall on men to make the first move. I see you don't fully agree with that one.
No, I agree. I have made first moves before. I guess not first move, but like throw in some hints. Is that considered as first move?
That's great because I typically won't make the first move unless the hints are there. Okay. So if I, approach a woman and I'm chatting to them and she's speaking to me like I'm a business partner, I'm not going to make the first move in that situation. Yeah. There's got to be something in her eyes, something in her demeanor that says she's open to that, because the game has changed, right? They used to say the worst she can say is no. That's not the worst that can happen.
What's the worst we can say?
It's not even so much what you can say in that situation. I would hate for anyone to think that I was a creep.
Right.
Right.
I didn't think about that. Okay.
Yeah. So if I approach a woman and she's not giving me a signal that she is interested in some way, I'm not going to make that move because I would hate for her to feel uncomfortable. And for me, pretty much my only real long-term hobby is going to the gym, and I won't approach a woman in the gym because it's a safe place, right? You go there to work out.
Yes.
And unless, of course, you give them the signal. So it's not making the first move to smile, make eye contact, and let a guy know that you're open to talking further. What I would define as a first move is saying, is going in for the kiss first, or to initiate the first round of sexual intercourse or something like that. Typically, I would like that to be on me personally. And I know a lot of men would disagree with me, so this isn't a rule for all.
It's your rule.
Yeah, this is me. One, because I like feeling like I'm in the driving seat of that one. And two, because of what I was saying about the guilt complex that I have when progressing things along. So a lot of the time, if a woman then decides to start driving things along, it makes me worried. It's like, oh, I've lost control of this situation.
It's too uncertain for you.
Yes, it's now, is this going to turn into something that I don't want it to be? Am I going to end up hurting someone? And that side of things. So for me personally, I like holding control.
Well, that's very interesting. Thanks for sharing. That was good to know. I feel like it's true. Everyone is just so different when it comes to a relationship. We all have different preferences. I just wanted to know the first move question. Sorry. Thanks.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
So we were talking about general rules, and we were talking about how whether a woman saying that she was looking for a relationship would scare a man off. Mm-hmm. Any man that you say that you want a relationship to and it scares them off, then you were meant to scare them off because they're not looking for a relationship. Where I would draw the line is be honest about your intentions and say, look, I'm looking to date to find a long-term relationship. That doesn't mean tell the person that you want a relationship with them before you're at that stage, right? Be honest about your intentions, but before you've met them for the first date, don't tell them you want a relationship with them because that would scare them off.
That would scare them off. Yeah, I think it's also kind of like learning. I feel like what I've learned, I was in a long-term relationship before, and I feel like what's different then and now is I feel like I'm able to ask better questions. For instance, instead of saying, oh, what do you look for in a relationship? I could maybe ask, so what kind of partner are you? And then kind of like slowly give into it. Or maybe it's just the nature of my job that I interview so many people over the years that I've learned to ask better questions. And I think that is something that really changes the game when it comes to dating. It makes it so much more fun and not interviewish, I feel. Because some dates can be a bit like, ugh, get me out of here.
You are incredible at asking questions because I've talked about myself way more than I intended. For the people that weren't privy to this conversation, but when Maggie first got here, she's like, let's talk about anything like relationships in general, but not too much about me personally. And instead, it's been 90% about me personally.
I can't help it. I'm a podcaster myself, but yes, okay, now it's your turn to ask.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry, I can't help it. I didn't even realize.
No, I think it's good. I
feel like because you're on the podcast and you tend to ask people questions, I'm so sure your listeners are loving the fact that you're sharing way more about yourselves than I am. So
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're good. You're really good on it. You've definitely turned the tables. So one other point I wanted to get onto, which you kind of touched on earlier when you mentioned about sleeping with multiple other people when you're in a relationship. Now, obviously,
cheating.
If it's a monogamous relationship, of course. What constitutes cheating?
Whew. The moment you have to hide, that's cheating. Even if it's a text message, nothing physical, that's cheating. But I do know some people don't find that or consider that as cheating. But for me, cheating is the moment when you hide it from your partner. I think that's really the number one rule. Yeah.
Interesting study, which I was just getting the figure on so I didn't misquote it again there. 41% of women in the US said that their husband intentionally daydreaming about sleeping with someone else constituted cheating.
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
41% of women surveyed in the US said that their husband intentionally daydreaming about sleeping with someone else was cheating.
Intentionally daydreaming, sleeping with other... How do you do that? Like just thinking about them?
I guess, yeah, thinking about sleeping with someone else.
And they tell their wives?
I think on this study, they're talking about it as a hypothetical, right? Like if you knew your husband was daydreaming about sleeping with another woman, is that cheating?
Oh, right. Okay. If that person is of close proximity, I would consider that an intent to cheat. Because if you think about it, you're going to be tempted to do it if opportunity arrives, right? But if you're talking about, oh, I love to sleep with Brad Pitt, that's different. Or like Chris Evans. I mean, come on, let's be real. Or like, if for the men, I don't know, Vanessa Hudgens or like Heidi Klum. I don't know. That maybe not. But if it's someone like Jennifer from down the road, oh hell yeah, I think that's an intent to cheat. That's not okay. Why the fuck are you thinking of sleeping with her and taking off her pants? Right? So I think it really depends who the person is daydreaming with, but preferably, let's be honest, just daydream about your partner, please. Like not anyone else but your partner if you're in a relationship, because I feel like that is an amber flag that could become a red flag. Yeah. Like why would you want to daydream about sleeping with someone else, actually? Would you agree?
I think it depends on the relationship. And the reason being is if you define cheating is breaking the rules of a game that was agreed to, right?
Yes.
And there are different games for different people out there. And there is a rise in these other form of ogamies, right? Monogamy used to be the main thing. Yeah. And typically now there's, I don't know how many there are.
Yeah, too many.
There are certain things, people might enjoy having those conversations together and...
what, threesomes and stuff?
There are those kind of... Yeah, lots of people are into those kind of things. So I think, for me, cheating is anything that if your partner knew you were doing it, they wouldn't be okay with it because you know what the rules are. So unless you can openly say to your partner, say, look, I know you wouldn't be okay with this, but I want to adjust the rules so that this is okay and you can mutually agree on it, then it's no longer cheating. But if you know that they're playing by a certain set of rules and you're breaking them, whether it's figuratively or you're actually acting on it, then that's where I would say the cheating starts.
Yeah. Have you been cheated on before, or have you cheated?
I haven't cheated. When I was 17, I was in a situationship that blew into something like that, but it wasn't the case. Literally, is like a scene from a movie, that one. Oh, from Friends, isn't it? We were on a break, like that.
Yeah.
That whole
I've had
thing.
one of those also.
I've been cheated on.
Oh no.
And again, kind of a blurred line with that one. So I moved out to New Zealand from the UK. We planned on breaking up when I left. When I was in New Zealand, we carried on talking and then made plans. Okay, she's going to come out and meet me out there, and okay, let's make this work. And so then I paid for her
flight.
Yeah. No. What happened? She applied for the visa.
Yeah.
Then slept with someone else. I then found out about it, and at that point,
she slept with someone else back home.
Yes.
Okay.
So before she came back out. So I don't know if that's probably another we were on a break kind of thing, right? But we had agreed that we were going to be.
But the intention to come see you was already there, so that's not nice on her part, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely not ideal, but then not
okay.
a completely black and white one either.
Yeah, it's always hard when it's like not clear. Okay. Yeah, cheating is not okay. I feel like I've had experiences before. And it's very painful, and it really changes you. And if anything, it really kind of like, it affects you in ways that you may not even realize until your next relationship. The insecurity can really creep in moments where you don't even realize. And it really takes a lot of work for your partner and you to be honest, and for your partner to not dismiss that honesty and to assure you. And I guess one of the ways that I've learned is really, let's just say my partner has met a new friend who is a woman. The first thing I would have expected him to do, I would say, is to introduce her to me. That's like you break the barrier of like, oh, there's nothing going on between us. Would like you to meet my girlfriend. And that's such a great way to assure your girlfriend, I feel. When you introduce someone to me, of course, they can still cheat behind their back if they really want to. But from my experience, I feel like that's one way to show that you respect your girlfriend, that, hey, met this person at work, would love for you to meet her. Yeah, I think that's one way to assure the girl. Just a little tip that I feel, I don't know if that's helpful.
Do you think that if that person was perceived as being incredibly attractive, it might have the opposite effect?
Yeah, but I'd rather know than not know. Yeah. It's very unlikely to happen because I would probably know all the friends. But it really depends. There's so many factors. But yeah, if the person is very, very attractive, then maybe I would feel a little bit or very insecure and have to ask, why do you have to be friends with her? And then it spiral.
Yeah.
A little bit sus, like, how do you guys become friends? Like, why are you even friends with this hot person? But yeah, that aside, I feel like I'd rather know than not.
100%.
Because if I find out later that, oh, you're friends with this hot person that I never knew about, like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you've been friends with them for a number of months and it's not come out, then
that is sus, because then you're hiding it from your partner, and that could be cheating, actually, can be considered cheating.
Because it's crossing a line of, you know, that your partner wouldn't be comfortable with.
Correct. And you know she'll be upset, therefore you didn't tell. That is hiding something from your partner already, essentially. Right? Yeah.
Let's talk about dating apps.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on modern dating and the prolific nature of dating apps?
It's no longer my thing anymore. When I got out of my relationship last year, I made it a point to not go on dating apps. Although I did try when I was in Bali last October. My friend was like, babe, try Bumble. It's pretty fun. I went on it for like 12 hours. Oh, boring as hell. I mean, there was some hot men there, but like, oh, I don't know. I'm not into dating apps anymore. I feel like it takes so much effort. And I prefer meeting people organically. Whether it is being introduced to or like you meet by chance at a restaurant or mutual friends, I personally prefer meeting IRL, in person, in real life. I am not into dating apps anymore, although I used to. I have been on dating apps before, a long time ago when Tinder first came out. It was fun until it wasn't. It gets tiring because then the conversation is repetitive. You could be talking to 10 men all at the same time,
Copy and paste.
And you're not actually present. Like, what's the point? Right? And they could be doing the same thing. So like for me, I rather put in all of my energy into one person at a time. That's just me, right? So then to talk to like 10 other people and not giving my all in all of them. So, but again, I'm at a phase where I am looking for something serious, or like at least not just dating around for fun. So I think it really depends, but dating apps not for me. What about you?
I think they have an unhealthy effect on both of the sides of the coin here. I don't know much about the LGBTQ side of it.
Yeah.
But I know when we're looking at heterosexual dating apps, it causes a lot of issues. It provides the illusion of infinite options, which can then add to, as you say, you can just keep looking for the perfect person because they might be one swipe away and, oh, there's something wrong with that guy. He's got crooked teeth or whatever.
Correct.
Discount onto the next one. There's also an issue in the distribution of success on dating apps. The top 20% of men have access to the top 80% of women. The bottom 80% of men have access to the bottom 20% of women.
I would need you to repeat that one more time.
Okay. So the top 20% of men have access to the top 80% of women.
Fair.
The bottom 80% of men have access to the bottom 20% of women.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay. And when I'm saying top or bottom of this percentile chart, it's to do with successful matches on dating apps. So what this does, it means there's a certain group of men that are getting their pick of all of the women. All of the women are obviously looking for their prime pick of the men. And then there's 80% of men that are having no success or little to no success. Coming out with a lot of statistics on this, but I've listened to a few podcasts on this kind of subject. Yeah. 30% of men under 30 have reported having no sexual partners in the last year.
Okay.
That's something that women should be concerned about as well. And the reason being is a man that finds themselves undateable, unfuckable, or whatever else, they stop trying. They remove themselves from it. And they then have people that are potential matches out there that are never going to find them because of it. And this is why women are just having to compete for the top 20% of men. And not only are they having to compete for them, they're not getting what they want because the top 20% of men think they've got infinite options because they've got all of these women there. So they're not settling down for long-term relationships. Yeah. So it's screwing both sides of the coin.
It is. I do hear stories about men like not getting quality swipes or like just not getting any at all. So yeah, there is truth to your stats. So that's why I'm not into dating apps. It can get very repetitive, like you mentioned, and it can almost like you're desensitized to it. Like you don't even know what you're swiping anymore. Like, what am I doing here? It becomes so robotic. And I feel like that takes away the joy of meeting people because I don't know how much it would take for someone to want to meet a person in real life from all the conversations, which is why for me, like, I'd rather not go through all of that and rather just be in my own space and really put myself out there when I'm ready to date again. I feel like I would be that kind of person.
How would you go about putting yourself out there?
I guess in my line of work, I do meet a lot of people from day to day that like just like this, I could meet a new friend today and then another one tomorrow. And also like, I do think that I do have friends who all have very single friends as well. And if I do want to like say, I want to date someone, there will always be recommendations. So yeah, like there's no problem. But I do believe that the person who's for you, you guys will find you. I'm such a hopeless romantic. I'm not a stat person at all. Total opposite of you. But I do feel like if a person is for you, you guys will find your way to meet each other. And even if that means it could be very well on dating app. Like there's 1,000 people that you swipe in a day. Like a really close friend of mine, she met her fiance, her future husband, now future husband. They're going to get married in a couple of months on Bumble. And apparently she was his first swipe or second swipe. I'm like, it does happen, but it's really 1 in a million. And I don't think it could be 1 in a million for everyone, right? So, but again, personally, I would prefer just meeting people organically.
There are success stories out there.
They are,
and
they are.
some good friends of mine in Australia, they met on Tinder over 10 years ago and are still happy together today.
They are.
So yeah, there are, but I think as a general rule, finding people organically.
I don't want to like discourage anyone to go on dating apps, because for some people that could be their only possible avenue, because I do get DMs or stories from people saying that they're such introverts that they just don't go out, and if they meet people they feel so much anxiousness, they feel very anxious, and I feel like that's very fair. So I'm not saying that dating apps won't work, but it really depends on what kind of person you are. I think also for my line of work, putting myself on a dating app, I sometimes don't know the person's intention anymore. You want to be with me because of the people that I know, because it's now linked to like all your real profiles, right? Your Instagram and everything. So they kind of can scan through all your whole life without even meeting you first. And I don't like that. Like you can go on someone's Instagram and know everything about them before meeting them. I kind of want you to get to know me through me in person and not what I put out on social media, because we all know it's a highlight reel. Yeah. Right. So that's my take.
My friend Juria came out with a line the other day, and I can't remember word for word what it was, but it's something along the lines of like, everyone's full of shit on social media.
Exactly. Like I want you to get to know me, experience me away from social media, because not that social media is 100% bullshit, but there's a lot of...
It removes 90% of the bullshit that's actually happening. You see the best 10%, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I put up probably the best 20% and not like the other bad percent. You know?
Exactly. And I feel like I have an obligation to let people know, you know, I do have red flags. I've got these issues, because they approach you like through social media, through this TikTok that Juria created for me. And they say, oh, you're so great. I'd love to meet you. I'm like, I'm really not like that great. You seem just me looking at my best, like in a suit a little bit. I am fucked.
It's crazy how social media has really completely distorted the way people date or look at each other. And I wish... I'm a bit of an old schooler, I guess. So yeah, like for me, a good old conversation is always the best in person, not on text. Is tiring. I hate it. I hate it. Yeah.
Especially if someone's got a big social media presence, texting is going to be their idea of...
And also like my friends who are like actually famous with like millions of followers, like it's so hard for them to date. And that could be a story for another day, right? We've talked so much, but like dating as a public figure is not easy. Yeah. They could just very well just screenshot it and it can become a headline for some of them. So
there's definitely that concern.
That fear.
Yeah. I'm not saying that I am a public figure, but I've definitely I've gained a lot more traction than I had before.
Yes.
And there have come honey traps with that. Like I've had people try and seduce me into sending nudes through fake accounts, like really prevalently. Yeah. I went on a date with a girl who just kept slyly taking photos of me while I was there, thinking that I couldn't notice.
Oh, the guy on TikTok.
Yeah, literally. So it does change the game. But yeah, definitely wouldn't say it's a widespread problem for me. But yeah. Maggie, thank you so much for coming on. This, as I said to you at the beginning, let's aim for 30 to 45 minutes.
I think we went way beyond.
This is without a doubt the longest podcast I've done, but I just couldn't stop it. The conversation was too good.
I can't stop talking.
If people want to keep up with you, where can they go?
You can, I mean, I'm on social media just as we all are. The Maggy Wang, MAGGYWANG on Instagram. I also do have my own podcast, which I would love for you to come on if you're ever back in Malaysia again. It's the Head Over Heels pod. We are launching, I don't know when this podcast is coming out, but hopefully when this episode comes out, my pod will be up and running for the 4th season. So
perfect. This one will be coming out towards the end of October. So
okay, I think my podcast should be up and running then.
I will put all of your links in the description below, so please go and give Maggie a follow. Maggie, thank you so much for coming on.